Welcome everybody to Camp Student Radio for a very special interview today with a local Tucson legend, Dr. Ed Ackerley, hosted by Trevor Shore. Dr. Ackerley, thank you so much for taking the time to do this interview.
Thank you, Trevor. Appreciate you having me here at Camp Radio.
It's great to have you here. You're kind of like I said, a local legend in Tucson. I know you grew up here, spent a lot of time here. Tell me a little bit about how Tucson was when you were growing up and how it has turned into to modern time.
Sure. So I was born and raised in Tucson. I went to school here, private school when I was in elementary school, and then I went on to public school, graduated from Palo Verde High School on the east side, and then went on to the University of Arizona and became interested in what's happening to my city, and then went on to get a doctorate degree after that. And I've worked at my firm for 47 years, and what has changed about Tucson, when I was a young boy, we left our doors unlocked and people would come and go as they pleased. We weren't really concerned too much about crime. There wasn't any problems with that in my young life, and people came from all over the country, all over the world actually, to Tucson to visit Tucson because of its culture. It's obviously the great things like the Desert Museum and Sabino Canyon and Colosso Cave and later Kartchner Caverns and the Titan Missile Museums and all the great things, food, culture that Tucson has to offer, and of course weather. For many years, for about 40 or 50 years, golf was a really important thing. People would come to Tucson to play golf and stay at the racket club and play tennis, and so sports was a real big deal. And so I remember Tucson as being a very friendly, very clean, very fun place to grow up. It was a great cultural center, and it's changed. Here in 2023, I see things a little differently. Our town has gotten crime-ridden. There's lots of fentanyl and homeless issues going on. There's a lack of police presence, and so I'm a little disappointed in how Tucson is faring right now in 2023. So it has changed quite a bit since I was a little kid, and that's why I have jumped in to try to make a difference.
Yeah, and so speaking of that difference, you're currently running for mayor, to be the next mayor of Tucson. Explain, first off, how you kind of got into that and how the process is going.
Well, I worked for many years, and my family had a company here, so we were busy making money and busy making a difference on the bottom line, which was our own, and helping clients grow their businesses. We have an advertising agency, so we spent a lot of time working with small businesses, getting them to grow and to make money. And I kind of blame myself and blame my counterparts in the business community who kind of looked the other way for several years and just kind of let government do what it wanted to do. And in that regard, they prioritize things other than safety and cleanliness. And so in 2019, I decided to run for mayor. Jonathan Rothschild was the mayor for 8 years, and he decided not to run for a third term. So I stepped in last cycle, and I did pretty well for a guy that had never run before, had never been in political office. I did really well. I challenged the system and did well. And so I didn't win, but I came back this time around, and I have a pretty solid team, and we're doing well actually, and trying to get signatures now. All candidates are getting signatures right now to qualify for the ballot. So I jumped in because I feel that I can make a difference in Tucson and provide leadership to the city council and to the city manager to help fix some of these problems.
Yeah, and so you talked about running for mayor, and how has the campaign been different this time as opposed to last time where you kind of jumped in without knowing what was kind of going to happen?
The analogy that I use is if I ever buy a house again, when I first bought my first house, which we've been in for 31 years, I thought I knew everything, and at the very last second they wanted $11,000 more, and it was just an incredible experience. And I say that if I ever bought another house again, I have I know what to expect. So I didn't know anything when I ran the last time. I just kind of blindly jumped in and tried to figure out what to do. And it was myself, my brother, who's my partner in my company, my nephew, who's a former state legislator, and a couple of other volunteers helped us try to do what we did. We did great, but we really didn't have much of a team. This time I have a campaign chair, I have a campaign manager, I have a campaign coordinator, I have a campaign scheduler, I have many advisors, I have about 100 volunteers. We're a real bona fide campaign team this time around, so it's really different from what I did before. And it's making a difference because we're really getting some attention now that we didn't get the first time.
And how has the community support been? Because Tucson is it's kind of a close-knit community if you want to make it that way. So how has that support been this campaign?
Well, when I ran last time, I won everything east of Craycroft Road, so basically that's where I grew up. Our company is kind of based on the east side, so it was pretty obvious that I would win all the precincts on the east side. I didn't do too bad in the midtown portion, and then I did okay in parts of the western city. I didn't do it well at all in southern Tucson, over in southwest Tucson. I did not win any precincts in Ward 5. And so I've been concentrating a lot of effort over in that area. And many of those people over there speak Spanish as their first language, so I've been practicing my Spanish, and I'm fairly fluent in Spanish and can get by. And so we've been doing a lot of events over in the southwest corner of the city to try and make inroads with those folks. And you know, I think that's been a good experience for me, to try to reach out to some of the people who don't know who I am and what I offer, to try to get some awareness in that. And we've done really well with that. And es muy importante porque hay muchas personas aquí en Tucson que necesitan un alcalde y una presidente municipal. So bringing that whole perspective that I can speak Spanish, that I do understand the cultural differences of those families, and been very well received in that area.
Yeah, and in class, so for those of you who don't know, Dr. Ackerley is one of my professors.
Full disclosure.
Full disclosure, yeah. You've been here at the university teaching for quite a bit, and you oftentimes in class talk about how great of a city Tucson is, and things that people can do, because oftentimes students think there's nothing to do here. Do you want to describe for some of the viewers some of the things that they can do that they might not know about?
Sure. So one of the things, I was just happened to be talking to a client who owns a White Stallion Ranch. It's a dude ranch here in Tucson. There's two of them. Tanque Verde Guest Ranch is the other one. And then there's, I just invited one of our senators, U.S. senators, down to Rancho de la Osa, which is in Sassabee, Arizona. So one of my clients owns a dude ranch. It's the #1 vacation spot by USA Today, voted #1 for family vacations in America. And so when you think about Disneyland and Las Vegas and all the places that people, Grand Canyon, all the places people can go on family vacations, right here in Tucson we have White Stallion Ranch, which is cited as the #1 family vacation spot in America. And so I think there's lots of hidden gems in Tucson like that. Western, cultural, we're the 23 miles, we're a city of gastronomy, only one of 4 in the world. And so we were just named by Time magazine as one of the top 20 places in the world. There was Bozeman, Montana, and a couple of other small places in America, but Tucson was ranked by Time magazine as one of the 20 places in the world as a must-see, must-go-to vacation spot or engagement spot. And so we do have a lot of positive things going for us culturally. Obviously, the University of Arizona sits right in the middle, and it's an engine of culture, music, entertainment, sports, obviously academics and scholarship and so forth. And so we have a tremendous amount of offerings. There shouldn't be people sitting on their couch saying, you know, there's nothing to do in Tucson. There's thousands of things to do in Tucson in the course of a year. And it's just, we have things that, yeah, maybe they're not the glitzy, glamorous thing of the Las Vegas Strip, and maybe they're not professional sports like you would get in Cleveland or in Miami or in New York. But we do offer quite a few things that people sometimes don't know what's going on. They just need to look a little bit, and they would be surprised how many cool things there are to do in Tucson.
Yeah, and that's, I gotta say, that's something that I didn't really know about Tucson until I had your class. And then you oftentimes bring in a lot of local community leaders, and one of them being Grant Cougar. who told me about a lot of opportunities, job-wise here, and stuff to do. How has it been over the years meeting these influential people in the Tucson community?
Well, I have a double-edged sword. It's kind of actually three edges of a sword, if there can be such a thing. You know, being in the advertising business just allows me to be exposed to so much more than the average business person, because that particular business is media and public relations related, and so I get on the map pretty quickly with things that I can do that not a lot of other people get exposure to. So that alone has given me some great exposure. But that, coupled with my experience at the University of Arizona, teaching out of the Eller College and also the SBS College, and teaching communications and marketing and advertising and creativity, gets me in another realm of academia and scholarship that is pretty powerful. And you couple that with my advertising experience, I know a lot of the people that are in administration at the University of Arizona for those two reasons. And so I'm exposed to a lot of things that other people perhaps wouldn't be exposed to. And then you add on top of that the fact that I'm running for mayor. There's relatively few places I can go in the city where I don't know somebody, or that there isn't some engagement on some level. And so it's kind of interesting as a guy that's grown up here to be able to speak to so many different aspects of our community and have those conversations with people. It's kind of neat. You know, I'm not in this. I'm not in running for mayor for any personal. You know, I have a great career. I've had 2 careers. This will be my 3rd one. I'm not running because it's going to be beneficial to Ed Ackerley. I'm running because it's going to be beneficial to the city of Tucson, and to help the city that I love to be a better city and to fix some of the things that we can fix. There's a lot right with Tucson, but there are some things that we need to address immediately, and that's what I hope to do.
Yeah, and one of those things that I know you want to address immediately is fixing potholes in Tucson. If you've ever been to Tucson, drive on the roads are a major issue, especially right now. It feels like you have a flat tire every time you drive. How do you plan on going about and instilling all these fixed potholes?
Well, I think one of the things that that historically, Tucson, when we laid the streets 70 years ago, 60 years ago, many of the older streets are laid right on top of dirt. And when we have monsoons in the summer, it's not like other cities where the blacktop can sustain that type of a big rush of water all at one time. Plus, having 116, 120 degree weather in the summertime just bakes the asphalt. And so many of our streets are not treated in a way that they can take the abuse that they get both from the weather, and then when you put trucks and buses and cars over the top of that, they're just going to fail on a regular basis. And so, you know, I joke that I'm not belittling the concept of 1 million trees, but that's one of the mantras that one of the candidates is using, is to plant 1 million trees, which I understand the concept of climate change and so forth, but I'd like to fill 1 million potholes. I think that's what we need to do. We need to do the basics, and one of the basic things that the mayor and council do is to make sure that transportation is good for all people who use our streets. And so filling these potholes, I've been driving all around the last few weeks, and because of the rains and snows that we had, we're back in that issue again of having potholes all over Tucson, and you have to almost be a defensive driver when you're driving. And what I think is it's just a priority. We just got to get out and fill the potholes, and we haven't done that. We do some, and they do fill hundreds of potholes every year. I think we need to fill millions of potholes, and let's get these streets passable and usable. When you go up north, you know, I don't want to compare us to Maricopa County, but when you go up north to Phoenix, they're not suffering like we are, but they have the same thing. They have monsoons. They have the same problems that we have, but they're somehow able to not have the potholes that we have in Tucson. So it's a matter of priority of getting it fixed. So that's one of my big issues, is to make sure we can make a difference by showing people that we're serious about this. We just passed a bond package to repave streets. It was $450 million over 10 years. And let's get started right away. Let's start by, let's not wait to repave all these streets. Let's go get these potholes filled first, and then we can work on repaving as we need to.
Yeah, and so obviously it's a great thing. I know a lot of people want that. I personally want that.
Yeah.
But you oftentimes in class, at least, talk about leadership, because it is a leadership class. How do you think you are a leader prior to the campaign, and how do you feel like you're a leader during this campaign?
I would think that, leadership is a skill and a tool that we use to help make things better for people. And leadership is about bringing people onto the same page and getting them empowered to do the things that we need to do. I would just use an example would be public safety is one of my big issues that I talk about. And 15 years ago, when my high school classmate who played football with me was the police chief, he had almost 1,300 police officers at his command. We're asking Chad Kazmar, our current police chief, to do this with about half of that. He has about 700 police officers. And if those that are in the know that that's actually more like 300 or 400 police officers. We're trying to address crime and criminality and lawlessness and even the homeless problem where they're getting victimized. Those folks are getting victimized too from the crime from other people who are victimizing homeless people, and businesses are being victimized. And we're trying to do that with less than half of the police force that we had just a mere 15 years ago. And obviously our population has grown in that time as well. So what needs to happen is there needs to be leadership at the city council level. There needs to be a mayor who stands up and says, okay, we could spend a bunch of money on this particular program or this particular program or this particular program. They're all near and dear to many people's hearts. But shouldn't we be focusing on public safety first, because that's the single most important thing that we can do, is to make sure that people are safe and not fearing for their lives and so forth. We had 93 murders in 2021. That's nothing to be proud of. We had 67 last year. Again, that's nothing to be proud of. And we're on target again to have many dozens of murders this year. And I don't think we should be known as a murder capital of the Southwest. What we should be known for is a safe place, that we're not going to tolerate lawlessness. How do you do that? You stand up. You empower the police force and you empower citizens to make sure that we're just not going to tolerate lawlessness and criminal activity. That takes a strong leader to clean up Tucson and to make sure that the message is sent out clear and loudly that we are not going to put up with this lawless behavior by people. And I think I can bring that to City Hall. I think I can bring to the 10th floor and bring to the council meetings a powerful leadership perspective that is currently perhaps lacking in Tucson. So we have an interesting dynamic. In Tucson we have what's called a strong manager, weak mayor format of government. That doesn't mean that the mayor should be weak. It just means that the city manager runs the city of Tucson on a day-to-day basis. In other markets and other municipalities, sometimes the mayor is a full-time 40-hour-a-week, 70-hour-a-week paid employee who is managing all the things that have to happen to make a city run. That's not how we do it in Tucson. The charter calls for a strong manager that we pay hundreds of thousands of dollars to manage the budget and manage the 5,000 employees that the city has. And the mayor and council serves as a policy board to kind of prioritize where that money, that $2.1 billion should be spent, and what things we should spend it on. And what needs to happen at the council level and from the mayor's office is to tell the city manager from a priority perspective what things need to be done. I believe that public safety, transportation, economic development, cleaning up our parks, cleaning up our medians, and marketing Tucson to the broader community is where the priorities should be. And that will take leadership to tell the manager, these are the things that we want to spend the money on, and get away from some of these programs that are wasting resources in my mind and not pointing us in a direction that I think we need to be pointed in. And so I bring a lifetime of, I was a leader in first grade, I was a leader in my high school athletic teams, I was a leader, I've been a leader in my church, and I've been a leader of about 15 organizations I've been the president of, or the chairman of, over the last 30 years. I've taken a lot of companies and led those companies to positive profitability. I obviously am a leader at the University of Arizona, and so put all those things together. I think I can transfer those leadership skills to the mayor's office. And again, I'm not doing this, I don't need the job. I'm not saying that I don't want the job. I'm just saying I'm not doing this because I need a job, and this could be a job that I could get paid for to do some things. That's not why I'm doing it. I'm doing it to bring my perspective of leadership and management and maybe conservative fiscal policy to the mayor's office, and to help the manager do a better job of managing the resources that we have.
And you just mentioned earlier as well how you're not doing this for yourself. You want to do this for the greater community of Tucson. How important do you think that is in anything, whether it be politics, sports, school, when someone takes a leadership role, that they don't do it for personal reasons, to make themselves better, they do it to make the greater good better?
I think we all have a responsibility in our civic engagement to give back to the community and to do things that benefit the society at large. And whether that be volunteering at a local PTO with your school and your kids, or whether you're volunteering as a student here at the U of A in the 650, 675 organizations that are available to students on campus, or whether you get involved in student government or camp radio and become a volunteer to help learn some things, but also give back to the community. I think we're all responsible to do that from time to time, and sometimes we don't do that very well, and we kind of focus on ourselves and say, I'm doing this to help myself. I think we all need to look at leadership from another perspective and say, become a servant leader and do things for the betterment of the society. I'm doing this not for myself, but for my grandkids. I have 2 grandsons who live here with us, and I want them to live in the city that we talked about earlier, that the town that I grew up in and the city that I grew up in, that they're safe and that they have opportunity to grow and to maybe stay here in Tucson when they graduate from school, and to build a life here with their families, just like my family was able to do. And that's why I'm doing it. Some would say that some of the people that are running for office currently are doing it to maybe have a springboard to another job somewhere in government, or that they're doing it because they don't have a job right now and they're looking forward to employment. And again, I don't want to say that I'm not doing this because I don't need the job. I don't need the job. What I need is to fix Tucson, and we need to do a better job as a community, to create the ambiance where we're doing things for each other. That we're not shooting each other on the streets. We're letting other people pass in front of us. We're holding doors for each other. We're helping other people clean up their yards. We're having Eller Make a Difference Day is one of the things we do at the Eller College, and our students go out and clean up dirty places in the city. They help seniors in their homes. They do lots of different things to make a difference, and I think that's what I'm doing this for, is to make a difference in my own city.
Yeah, and that's a very valid reason to do this. So I gotta ask, because you took obviously a big leap of faith, not only running the first time, but running the second time. You have, as mentioned, you have 2 careers currently. Mm-hmm. Could have, taken that to the sunset, rode that to sunset, and been comfortable. But you stepped out of your comfort zone. How was that, making that decision to go out of the comfort zone? And also, what would you tell a younger person, maybe my age, maybe a little bit older, just getting into the career field? What is it like taking that comfort zone step, and would you suggest doing it?
Well, when I speak to students who come into my classes, we talk about, this is your education, and you need to grab hold of it, and you personally need to be in charge of your own education. Just coming to class or not coming to class, as we know, sometimes students don't even come to class, but not engaging with your own education, not taking advantage of the opportunities that are put before you, not participating fully in the experience of your education, is just going to kind of affect you down the line. And if you get a job and you're working somewhere and you're not putting in 100% or putting in the engagement that needs to happen, then you're not going to get out of it. You're going to get out of it exactly what you put into it. And if you don't put in a lot to it, you're not going to get a lot out of it. If you are in your classes, if you don't put a lot into your classes as a student, you'll probably tell other people that class wasn't very good. It wasn't very good because you didn't put your effort into it. That's why it's not as good as it could be. And so civic involvement is very much like that. You get out of your involvement in your city exactly what you put into it. And if you're not engaged and you don't care, and you throw paper out the window, and you speed down Speedway, and you are a part of the problem. If you're a fentanyl user and you're stealing from the Quick Trip store and the Circle K, and you're not participating in the social structure that we have, you know, you're part of the problem. And so we all need to take responsibility for our own behavior and to make our place more inviting for visitors and other people who can come to Tucson and enjoy a lifestyle that is powerful. And, you know, taking personal responsibility, having personal behavior that is meaningful. We all do things from time to time that we wish we wouldn't, but on the whole, we've got to get away from allowing the criminals in our town, the lawless people, break windows, steal things, do things that aren't good. And if we had that at the University of Arizona, you know, students wouldn't want to come to the University of Arizona if there was a lot of criminality and a lot of lawlessness on the campus itself. And there's some stuff that goes on, but it's pretty clean campus. And if we're allowing our city to be taken over by people, the wrong forces, and I'm just telling you, you asked me very early on why I'm still in Tucson and why I lived my whole life here and worked here. It's because Tucson was a beautiful and a pretty cool place to grow up and have a life. I've been very blessed to have a great career and a great family and a great experience here in Tucson. And to me, it just doesn't make any sense to let that slip away. And so engagement is the answer. We got to all get involved. We all got to take responsibility and do what we can to make it better. You know, I'm a kind of a fan of presidential history and so forth. And you know, I'm running as an independent, so I'm not necessarily attuned to one political party or the other. So I like things about Ronald Reagan. I like things about Abraham Lincoln. I like things about George Washington. I like things about modern day presidents. But John Kennedy stands out to me for a variety of reasons. And one is that he said, you know, ask not what your country can do for you, ask what you can do for your country. I'd like to pull that into the local. Ask not what your city can do for you, what your city is going to give you, what your city is going to create for you, give you free bus fare, give you free transportation, give you clean roads and so forth. The question is, what are you doing for your city? What are you doing to help your city be a better place? And what have you volunteered to do for kids? What have you volunteered to do for seniors? What have you volunteered to do for those that are less fortunate? What have you volunteered to do to raise up our police officers and give them the respect that they deserve, as opposed to belittling them and saying that they're not doing a good job? So that's my mantra. Ask not what your city can do for you. Ask what you can do for your city. And I'm going to be asking that question for people for 4 years. How can you help me make this city better?
And how has, I know you mentioned in class that you are in the pedal to the metal phase of your, you know, of the election. How has that been in terms of balancing, you know, obviously the campaign, but you know, you do have a life outside of the campaign.
Not much.
Yeah, but how has that been, trying to balance you know, those social relationships as opposed to just being work?
Well, I will say that I'm married. I have a wife of 31 years, and she's very supportive of me and what I do. I have 3 sons. They're all grown, 37, 30, and 28. One of them will be turning 29 here this weekend. And I have 2 grandsons, age 10 and 8, and then I have an extended family of my brothers and sisters that live here in town, and nieces and nephews. And so, family first. Family is really important. Actually, I will say faith is first. I'm practicing Roman Catholic. I have been all my life. I went to a Catholic elementary school. I go to church every Sunday, and I'm not espousing that people should be Catholic, but I do believe people should have a spiritual life, and whatever they believe that to be. I think that's a good part of being a well-rounded person, is to have a spiritual perspective. And I have a good family life, and then I have a good work life. I've been blessed with a great career, and the University of Arizona has noticed that, and they've promoted me and made that part of my life very, very meaningful. And but I've got a life coach. I've been to you know, funny I say I've been to a shrink. My life coach told me she wanted me to go to a psychologist, just to make sure that I was you doing this for the right reasons.